And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the vast majority of the efforts that are being put towards correcting the issues are more of a band-aid approach, I would say, than they are correcting the root. Nobody's saying, well, why am I not methylating? Well, genetic mutation. And as soon as we hear that, oh, it's in your genes, oh, we're doomed, there's nothing we can do about it other than band-aid solutions. I mean,
Right.
that's a medical
Right.
approach, right?
Welcome to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. It is time to make nutrition part of the conversation. I'm your host, Christina Veselak, and I'm so glad you're here. Did you know that it's our brain's job to allow us to cope with stress gracefully? But to do that, it needs to be fed optimally. Have you ever wondered why so many committed people relapse or maybe even die? Why so many people on psychotropic medication still feel lousy and still have cravings? What if the missing piece is food, the right food? What if the right nutrients like amino acids or even eating protein every 4 hours could actually balance your brain chemistry and your mood without medication and support lasting recovery? In this podcast, we explore the powerful connection between feeding your brain well, mental health, relapse, and recovery from addiction. We will share insights from experts, inspiring recovery stories, and practical strategies you can use today. Whether you're in recovery, a healthcare professional, or someone passionate about emotional well being, this show is for you. Let's dive in and discover how fueling your body and brain with the right food, the right amino acids, and other key nutrients can fuel your transformation today. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the next episode of Power Up Recovery with Nutrition, where we have very enlightening and exciting conversations with scientists, treatment providers, people in recovery, manufacturers of very useful products, and more. Today, I am delighted to renew my long-term acquaintance with a Canadian company called Truehope and their product EMPowerplus, which some of you have probably heard of and maybe have even been using for years, but this might be new for others. So I want to introduce David Stephan, who is a longtime educator for Truehope. David, welcome.
Thank you so much for having me on, Christina. It's a pleasure to be here.
So why don't you tell us a little bit about the Truehope company and how their primary product, Empower Plus, got discovered, and then we'll go on and look at some of the research.
Fantastic. I'll give a really Coles Notes version of the story because there's a lot of depth to it. So much so that, in September of 2002, Discovery Health Channel put out a full-length documentary on it back then. And that was kind of the beginnings of the story. But the story continued to unfold over the next 2 decades after that. And there was recently another film that was produced just recently, independent film called Epiphany, the True Hope Battle. And there's a good reason why it's called the True Hope Battle, that it's not just a discovery, it's not just a story. There was a battle to ensure that this could be made available to the general public. So that the general
Sure
public could,
was.
oh, well, yeah, you know the history enough that
Yeah.
when you have gun-drawn raids taking place to try to shut you down, that type of thing from government agencies, you know that you're either doing something really bad or something really good. And it turns out that we've been doing something really good with the way that we've been radically transforming lives now for nearly 30 years. But it really all began, the discovery of True Hope with my own family. And I'm going to sit and glaze over
Mm.
this. My mother came from a history of mental illness. Her father committed suicide in the late 70s. My mother struggled with bipolar disorder for 10 years. By January of 1994, she went to the doctor to get help. She ended up getting a prescription for Prozac, pretty new medication at that point in time. The SSRI medications had just come out. And within 3 weeks of her taking that medication, she took her own life as well. And that's when we would begin to learn about a lot of the hidden elements of these medications, the hidden science, if you will, and that oftentimes certain studies were being thrown out if they didn't meet the criteria, whereas other research studies were being selected or cherry picked
Right.
so as to win the approval process through the FDA and Health Canada. And some of that evidence would surface about 10 years after the death of my mother, showing that Prozac, at minimum, will increase your risk of suicide by 2 times. But in certain circumstances, depending on the condition of the individual, it could be 12 times with Prozac in particular. And unfortunately, my mother became one of those statistics
I'm so
in January
sorry.
of 1994. Now, my mother and father, I mean, they had been married at that point in time for 22 years. They had 9 children. Two of them had moved out. There's 7 of us living under the roof still. And we were all struggling with mental health conditions even before the death of my
You
mother.
were.
Yeah, but the trauma made it worse.
Yeah,
But
you had the genetics and you had the trauma.
exactly. It wasn't a good recipe at all. It was a recipe for disaster, and that's exactly what we saw within our home. It was just an impending disaster, just waiting to happen. Who was next, right? What was next? And my older brother was basically the next schoolyard shooting waiting to happen. He was homicidal, suicidal, extremely violent. At the time, he's 15 years old. He's stockpiling weapons as he can get his hands on them. He's on weapons charges with the RCMP. It's just this big rigmarole, and he's on a high dose of lithium. And he hates how it makes him feel, so he's not doing it. Compliance was an issue. Sometimes my father, with other individuals, would have to force it into him just to get him to take it, because it would take the edge off of the condition. But he wasn't well,
Right.
like not even close. My sister Autumn was, I believe, 22 years old at the time, maybe 23 years old. She had a
Your
3-year-old.
Autumn sister.
I'm Autumn's brother, indeed, indeed. Yes.
Sorry.
Yeah, Autumn's my sister. There you go. There you go. Yeah, so she's written a book. She
Yes.
has been showcased internationally, and her book was once available in Costco, chapters, that type of thing, published by
Yes, a good
HarperCollins.
book.
Yeah, fantastic book. If you get your hands on it, it's called The Promise of Hope. It's still available on Audible, I believe. Promise of Hope, and published by HarperCollins. And it's one of those books that once you pick it up, you make sure that you have a box of Kleenex on hand as well, because you're gonna have some tears flowing. It's just so emotionally compelling. And it's one of those books that you got to make sure you have enough time to read it because you won't want to put it down.
It is, and it's on my bookshelf.
Awesome. Yeah. And so it's just one of those. Yeah. So I'm Autumn's brother. And so Autumn was in and out of the psych ward at that time.
Mhm.
And she's on a cocktail of 5 medications: Haldol, Rivotril, Ativan, Cogentin, and Risperdal. And it's not working. She, at best, she's sedated, but she's often in and out of the psych ward. It's a revolving door for her. And when she's not in the psych ward, she has to be on 24-hour supervision because she's obsessing about ways to kill herself and her 3-year-old son, thinking that that's appropriate. And so that was kind of the beginnings that laid the foundation as to how this amazing discovery came forward, highlighting that mineral deficiencies were the major cause in mental health conditions, and that when you restore the minerals to the body's able to correct the issues. And as such, the science that's currently behind the discovery, which we'll get into in a moment, highlights that this is the most profound discovery, the most efficacious discovery in the field of mental health. And that's a really bold statement, but the studies back up what over 100,000 people across the world have now come to experience. So it's really phenomenal. But my dad's in this crisis, and he's watching his children fall apart. And so he exhausts everything that's available to him within the psychiatric industry, right? Every medication, he goes and meets with the head psychiatrist out of the Foothills Hospital in Calgary, Alberta, to get the most expertise help that he can. She just reassured him, Mr. Stephan, that you have the best of medications available to you. This is as good as it's going to get. That's it. And you need to face the reality. And this is after she pulled off the DSM-4 off of her shelf and opened up to bipolar disorder and read that it was a recurrent disorder. She just said, Mr. Stephan, you need to face the reality that this doesn't get any better. And oftentimes it gets worse, and that you may have to plan more funerals. And that's not what he wanted to hear, but it's absolutely what he needed to hear. And this is early 1995 at this point in time. So just a year after my mother had taken her life. So then my father begins to talk to people in the community, ask them what they knew about mental illness. And nobody had a story of recovery, but a lot of people had stories to tell. Adult children still living in their parents' basements, incapacitated by the mental illness, not able to function within society. And so a lot of stories, a lot of people had things to offer, and my father was willing to try anything. So all of a sudden, my brother's doing magnetic therapy. Great. Didn't help with the mental illness. And then he's doing copious amounts of Tahitian noni juice. Ick. It was pretty gross, right? But didn't work, right? And then there's this, Joe refers to it as rust water. So some kind of water that was probably mineral rich, but probably not the right form. And we'd learn more about that later. And then the freezer somehow gets filled with copious amounts, probably of stale dated flax oil or something. I'm not sure where my dad got it from, but all of a sudden there's this junk load of flax oil, which flax oil is good, right?
Uh-huh.
The omega-3 fatty acid in there, ALA, if it converts to the DHA and the
Right.
DPA and the
That's right.
EPA, then we've got good cardiovascular support and good cognitive support, right? I mean, there's studies on it showing that just good omega-3 fatty acids can have a significant impact on ADHD. And so,
And depression and
well,
addiction
and
and
everything.
neurodegenerative disorders and. But again, it's within its own wheelhouse.
Well, we'll get into that in a minute because it's actually one of the four pillars of nutrition, which is what I refer to. There's four main pillars of nutrition, and they're holding up a structure. But when you remove one of them, you're doing a balancing act. You remove two of them. So if you're deficient in two of them, then you're really balancing. You might be able to do it, but you're unstable and quality isn't there, right? And then, you get rid of three of them. So all four pillars work synergistically together to uphold this structure. And that's the four pillars of nutrition being vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and omega fatty acids. If you're lacking any one of those, the other three won't do their full job, right? And so we'll get into that because it's all about synergy.
That's
It's
cool.
all about
Yeah.
taking that holistic approach, is what we've discovered. It's just that we've really focused in on the mineral deficiencies because those are the things that we're most deficient in. Not saying we're not deficient in the others, but we are most deficient as a Western society in mineral content due to agricultural practices. But I digress. So my father tries all this stuff and it doesn't work for Joe. And finally, he just comes, he's desperate and he's like, okay, he's fasting, he's praying, he's pleading, and he's just saying, like there has to be a better answer out there. And if, there's no known answer for mental illness, but if there is an answer, surely God knows the answer.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
so he was just for months. If you take a look at the pictures that were taken during that particular time, you'll see that he was more slender than he was at other times in his life because the amount of fasting that he was doing as he was desperately pleading for the restoration of his children. Now, nothing miraculous happened overnight, but by the time November of 1995 rolls around, he's now in a property. He's a property manager over 26 large buildings down in southern Alberta. And he's talking with a colleague about replacing carpets within the hallways. And he's overcome with this impression. I need to tell David Hardy about what's going on. That's his colleague. And he did. And it had no relevance to what they were discussing, had no relevance to the meeting that they were having together. My dad just laid it all out and basically ended off the conversation that if things didn't change, we'd have no choice but to admit my older brother Joseph to the psych ward. And David Hardy had something really interesting to say. He said, first of all, I've got a large family like yours, but they're all well, they're fine. I've never had to deal with mental illness. My wife, she's fine, so I can't relate to you that way. He says, but I spent over 20 years in the animal feed industry formulating feed for hogs across Western Canada and Western United States. And we saw something in the hog pens called ear and tail biting syndrome where they'd become irritable with each other and bite chunks of their ears and tails off each other. And if you didn't pen them away from each other, they'd actually kill each other. He says, we learned in the animal feed industry that you could completely eradicate that condition simply by putting the proper nutrition into their feed. My father says, it's like light bulb moment. Resonated from his head to his toes, and it's a good thing because had it not resonated, had there not been a confirmation, then it would have just been one more checkbox of well, vitamins and minerals didn't work. And the reason being is they went down to a health food store, picked up all of these vitamin and mineral products, put Joseph on them, November of 1995, and it didn't work. And so then they tried again, and it didn't work. And it wouldn't be until January 18th of 1996 that four products would arrive from the US, vitamin and mineral products, but they were balanced and they were made bioavailable by the fact that they were being chelated, the minerals, because we don't absorb rock form mineral. I mean, you can
Right.
go and grind up a really nice, colorful rock that's just filled with all sorts of mineral and then consume it, but wrong form.
That's
That's
very
not the
true.
way nature works, right?
Right.
Nature works in such a way that you have a proper breakdown and conversion of the minerals in healthy, life-filled soil, soil that has a microbiome, right? Similar to what's going on in our guts, right? Where
Yeah.
you have
Yeah.
digestion taking place, breakdown, conversions taking place. And that's the way a healthy soil is supposed to be as well. And then the plants uptake that proper nutrition in the right form.
That's
The
right.
plants
Including
thrive.
minerals.
Yeah, including the minerals. The minerals have to be chelated and micronized in the soil, right? For them to
Hmm.
work best. And that happens. Micronization actually happens. The process of breaking the minerals down to a finer particle size. And that often happens with different types of worms. Anybody who's ever gardened and used worm castings knows what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, because you put
Yes.
these particular worms into the soil, you can see where they've been and you can see where they're going, because there's a stark contrast between where they've already been. They've broken it down. It's so fine and it's nicer and it's got microbial activity, and you can use it as a fertilizer now. That particular soil, you can actually use
That's
it
right.
as a fertilizer, whereas the soil that they haven't been in yet is just soil.
Hmm.
And so the plants uptake the minerals and all of the nutrients that are in the microbiome in that soil, and then you eat those plants and you thrive. But there's a major disconnect because agricultural practices have destroyed that process, sterilizing the soil, and we have less than 1/5 of the mineral content generally available in the foods that we eat today compared to what your great grandparents would have been getting out of their food. And so hence why we're starving for nutrition. So four products arrive on January 18th of 1996. Within 5 days of Joseph using them, he said it was like a fog lifted and he can now see what was right and wrong. And within
Hmm.
30 days, he would have no longer qualified for a diagnosis of bipolar disorder. Now, he wasn't 100% better, but he's having normal good days and normal bad days rather than extremely good days where he's, manic on borderline psychosis, to extremely bad days where he doesn't even want to get out of bed because he's so depressed.
That's right.
So the extremes went away. And as time went on, he got more and more and more stable. But within 30 days, there was significant recovery that had taken place. That
So
was,
there was your miracle.
there's the miracle. The answer to the prayers had happened, and my father had received the confirmations he needed to persist, to move forward with it. And now, Autumn didn't want to get on the supplements because she's working with psychiatrists 5 hours north of us. And my dad phones her all excited saying, "Hey, we got an answer for you, and it worked for Joe. It's going to work for you." And she's like, "Come on, Dad, really? Like, you found this out of all people, an engineer, really?" Like, so she probably thought that he was in need of some psychiatric medications himself at that point in time. Like, of all people in the world, my father's going to have the discovery that the psychiatrists don't have. Well, a month later, she had to come and stay with us because she once again needed 24-hour supervision, and her husband was working a night shift. And she went extremely suicidal during her stay with us. And my father just said, "Look, no, you're doing this." And he says, to be politically correct, he didn't force her to take the supplements. He just merely compelled her to take the supplements. I don't think anybody else saw a difference from the outside. It looked the same, but she got on them.
I'm your dad. You're going to do what I say.
That's right. Well, and to alleviate some of the legalities surrounding it, she was a mental health patient that was not in her right mind in the first place. So maybe that counts for something, but she didn't want to do it. But
Mhm.
within 5 days, when her husband came to pick her back up, she was already transforming as a woman. Now, she had a lot more issues than Joe. She wasn't even taking care of her hygiene because she would see stuff in reflective glass. Hallucinations were, persistently present. And now the hallucinations are gone. And now
Mhm.
she's starting to reason and have logical conversations. And my father, passes her back to her husband, and he's livid that this is all taking place. But then when he sees who she's actually becoming, he has a change of heart really quickly. So they persisted. They got her off of all of the medications within 45 days, which was pretty rapid. We've learned a lot since then because we had to develop a support program to help people come off of psychiatric medication safely and effectively. And some take
Mhm.
long, some don't take so long. But there's different classes of medications, and they all come with their own withdrawal effects. Some of them are far more addictive than others, and it all depends on the individual as well. But she got off the medications in 45 days, and she's never looked back. She's never had to go back on a psychiatric medication again. She's never had to visit the psych ward again unless it was visiting somebody that she knew, but not for herself. And she went on to live a beautiful life. She was given the advice to have surgery to prevent her from getting pregnant because those 5 medications would have been devastating to an unborn fetus. And she's glad she never took that advice because after she got well, she had 3 beautiful daughters with her faithful
Aw.
husband. Right. So now they had, 4 children and just a beautiful family. and she got her life back. In fact, she didn't get her
Yeah.
life back. She got the life that she never had in the first place
Right.
because this was persistent right from her early childhood. And now
Hmm.
all of a sudden she has this quality of life and this working brain that she's able to function and do what she wants to do and thrive in life. And what a beautiful thing that was. And so that was the discovery right there. And that was really the end of the story until word began to spread. And that's how one thing led to another to the point that, hundreds and hundreds of people would be using it. And then people, my father and David Hardy would be looking at this and saying, we need to get us into the hands of doctors. Look how many people's lives are being blessed by this. And they would then go and start knocking on the doors of academia to see if they could get it studied. And they would come up against all sorts of incredible opposition, but
Right.
through persistence and prayer, they were able to make a way and found researchers that were bold enough to study it. And there's now 35 medical journal publications on the main formula that we have, which is the EMPowerplus formula here. That's what it looks like in Canada here. If you go to a health food
Okay.
store, that's what you're going to see on the shelf. If you go to a naturopathic doctor, if they carry it, that's what you're going to see. But that's what's going across Canada. It's a white bottle, white plastic bottle in the US for the international
So
division.
in Canada, you can buy it from health food stores over the counter.
Oh yeah.
Can you buy it over the counter in the US? Because I
Uh
haven't seen it.
no,
I've just
there's
heard about buying it directly, either from a practitioner or directly from you guys.
exactly. That's the majority of the business in the US side. We haven't rolled out a similar program to what we've done here in Canada, where we've put out a lot of effort to make it available through the health food stores. It's a big endeavor to get it out there. So we haven't done that in the US, and maybe I'll say yet, but we shall see. But in the US right now, you go to truehope.com and you order it directly from there, or there are certain practitioners that do carry it. There are certain psychiatrists that have it on hand. And so it depends, but it's mainly available online through the US. In Canada, you can go to truehopecanada.com, and that's where you'll find all of the various locations that carry it. And it's found throughout health food stores all across the country, more so in the West than the East.
Mhm. Well,
But
near you.
yeah, near us first and foremost, because we just started where we were and we slowly grew and we grew it in a feasible way, without chewing up too much resources. And what's amazing is that in many of the health food stores, it's become the number one selling SKU. And the reason being is because of the profound effects that it's generating in people's lives, that they go back and they go back month after month to get their bottle, and they tell their friends about it, and then their friends start to take it, and it's this organic, word of mouth growth that's taking place, which is the best thing because one, it doesn't cost you anything for an advertising budget, and two, we don't have the money anyways, really, for an advertising budget because this isn't a highly profitable business, and we probably spent the
Yeah.
majority of our funds fighting off Health Canada to ensure that we could even be in Canada in the first place because they came in and they
So
charged us and all that.
I want to get back to that in a moment, but I've got a couple of questions, and I'll start with two of them, and you can decide where you want to start. One is, where and how do you actually source your minerals, and what does the formula kind of look like today? And then I'd like you to talk about the customer support process you guys offer to help people to personalize their own journey of recovery.
Yeah, for sure. So to start off with sourcing of minerals and the what was the second aspect to that question? There was the sourcing minerals
What's in the formula?
and how the formula looks today. That's right. And that's a
Yeah.
that's a question I've actually never gotten. So that's why it went by the
Yeah.
wayside here. But there's actually a lot of power in that question, and I'll get into that in a second. So
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
first thing is in relation to sourcing.
I've been around a few blocks, David.
Well, this it tells a story in itself in
Yeah.
relation to the formula, which we'll get to. And because oftentimes to compare a product, you're comparing it against your competition. We don't need competition to compare. We can compare where we were and where we are today. And
Mhm.
that highlights that not all nutrition is created equal, just based on where we've come from. And so we'll get into that in a
Okay.
second. So the sourcing of the minerals is really quite simple. All we do is we get minerals that are USP grade. They're Pharmaceutical grade is what the standard would be in the marketplace,
Hmm.
and which means that they're just pure. That's it. Doesn't mean that they're effective at all, but it means that they're pure. And so that's our starting point. And that's where basically everybody in the industry for the most part is getting their minerals. For the most part. Now, so you have a pure form mineral, in essence, a rock form mineral or a raw mineral, which isn't going to do the body much good at
Like
all.
what? Magnesium or calcium or all of it? All
Exactly.
the above?
Magnesium oxide, yeah, yeah, dibasic calcium phosphate, whatever. Just these simple minerals, but that on their own aren't that effective. And even when they're together, they're not that effective until you put it through a process that allows for the body to be able to actually assimilate it. And you ensure that they're in the
Mm.
proper balance. Because if you absorb a lot of unbalanced minerals, you'll offset the balance in the body and do more harm than good. So balance and bioavailability are absolutely crucial. So we put the minerals in the proper balance, being the calcium, magnesium, and phosphorus in the right balance, and then copper and zinc. Those are the main class of minerals that you have to maintain a proper balance. Then you put it into a form that the body can actually absorb. And that's where we go and we micronize the minerals, just like what would be happening in the soil under ideal conditions within the soil. We micronize the minerals, right? And then we add certain organic molecules that are going to react with the minerals and bind to the minerals, thus the process of chelation. So now it's not just a raw form mineral sitting there, even in a small particle size, it's been attached to an organic molecule, like what's happening in the soil. So now when you consume it, it's in a food form that the body will actually absorb. It recognizes it for what it is and puts it to use. Now, what that chelation does is not just increase the absorption, but it also helps with detoxification in the body because now you have these chelating agents that are able to act as oral chelators that bind up
Mm.
to heavy metals and
Okay.
toxins and will draw them out of the body. So the Empower Plus has a significant detoxing effect. It's gentle for the most part. Some people it's a little bit can be a little bit abrupt, and so you just start off slower. But it's a persistent and gentle detoxing that the Empower Plus will create by the oral chelation aspect, by the fact that it enhances methylation in the body,
Hmm.
and by the fact that you have certain minerals that have an affinity to or a displacing effect to heavy metals and will knock them out of place and take their rightful role in the body, if you will. So, and we learn about this with things like cesium and potassium. Radioactive cesium, you get exposed to it. The problem is the body sees it as potassium and it goes where potassium goes. Now you're
Hmm.
harboring radioactive cesium. So if you had higher levels of potassium, you wouldn't absorb as much of the cesium, right?
Right.
Whereas if you're deficient, your body will just rapidly suck it right up. Anyways, going back to the chelation, right? And so we take these raw form minerals and we make them effective through a proprietary processing to ensure that people are getting the effects that they need to get from them. And that's ultimately being able to not just be physically healthy, but to recover, because it's really a multivitamin we're working with, but a multivitamin that's able to allow people to recover from things like major depressive disorder, bipolar disorder, psychosis,
Hmm.
anxiety, autism. It helps with the alleviation of symptoms of autism. And that's been studied as well. And so I'm actually listing off all, conditions that it's been studied on. ADHD, of course, right? And even
Right.
PMS, reduction in symptoms in PMS. When you have proper nutrition flowing through your system, you're going to do better during
Yeah, well,
that
that's true.
special time of month. And that's what the study highlights, right? So that's the first aspect. Now, the second part is where's the formula today? If you were to compare the first version that we came out with in 1998, and you looked at the label and you compared it to what we have currently on the market right now, the first thing you're going to notice is that the bottle from 1998 is going to be more than double the size of this bottle. In fact, it's going to be about 4 times the size of this bottle total in volume. And the reason being is because it contained almost 4 times the amount of capsules. Although the label read, even that's tiny, tiny print, but the label read exactly the same. Still reads the same today. So the formula is the same, but based on what we've done to it in relation to learning about those micronization and chelation technologies that actually we helped
Mm.
establish the technologies. We do it differently than anybody else does it out there. We just do, and we've had to make it so that we can get people to be able to take the least amount of capsules possible while getting the results that they're looking for. So back in 1998, somebody with a significant mental health condition had to take 48 capsules per day. And you would say, that's the most ridiculous thing. Who would do that? You wouldn't believe how many people were doing it. You wouldn't believe it was spreading like wildfire because people were getting their
Super.
lives back, right? So they were
Right.
willing to take the 48 capsules a day. That's a meal. That's a meal in itself of capsules a day. And yet people were doing it. But we weren't satisfied with that. Now, that was already chelated back then in 1998. It wasn't
Mhm.
micronized, but it was chelated. In 2000, we changed the chelating agent. And just by doing that, we improved the absorption so much that we got down to 32 capsules per day. In 2001, we began to micronize it and we got down to 18 capsules per day. So now we have a micronized chelated formula, same ingredients, same proportions, but now 18 capsules a day is generating the same results that 48 was generating 3 years previous, right?
Okay.
Same ingredients, but yet now you can take just 18. Now 18 still seems high. And that's not the maintenance dose. The maintenance dose at that time would be 9. So half of what we're listing. But we've been able to continually refine that process to the point now that if somebody comes to us needing in Canada, if they're coming to us and they need therapeutic results, they take 6 capsules a day and it generally does it. And if they need a little more, well, they can go up to 9 capsules a day. Same formula, same ingredients, and yet less than 1/4 the amount needed today. Actually, it's getting closer to 1/8 the amount needed today than what you would have needed back in 1998, even though you were consuming the exact same ingredients. But now you can take 1/8 to 1/4 of the amount and get the exact same results. 1/4 is actually a little.
That's a fascinating story. I did not know the details. I did know that way back when you had to take an enormous amount of pills. And I had heard that today you didn't know need to take so many pills, but I didn't know how you got from there to here. So that's really wonderful to know.
Yeah, and there's some the US side is playing around with it a little bit more. I'm not a big fan of it yet because there's some things that just need to be a little bit refined. There's a lot of people that are having good success on it though, where they're playing around with a 1 a day. And some people are taking 1 to 2 capsules per day and they're seeing profound results from it. But the reason why I'm not a huge fan is the way that we market here in Canada. I wouldn't feel overly comfortable putting it on the health food store shelf because it's so powerful that it's also it can be somewhat unpredictable. And so it's a
Oh,
different model in the US. When you phone us or you email us and you end up purchasing the product, we're in direct contact with you, right?
yeah, yeah.
And now that direct contact allows for us to provide you the guidance that you need. Whereas in the Canadian market, when we sell through the health food store, we're hoping that if a problem arises, that the client will bypass the store and contact us and we can then answer their questions. Whereas the relationship isn't directly with us, with the end users, it's with the health food stores. So if we were to put that powerful of a product on the health food store shelf, it could be really good for some people and it could be a bit of a disaster for other people, especially if they were still on psychiatric medications. And so, as such, we have not entertained the idea yet of putting that onto the health food store shelves here in Canada. But that
So
just
it was
goes
going
to
to cause adverse effects too quickly.
it could. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And so we would want to make sure that we're in contact with you to go through that or to make sure that, if you're phoning us and saying, "Hey, I want to try this product." And we're like, "Okay, well, what's going on?" And then they fill us in and we'd be like, "Well, actually, this one is the one that will work better for you. Is this particular version given your circumstances?" Right? Whereas at the health food stores, we don't have the benefit of being able to provide that kind of guidance. So we supply the one that we know works the vast majority of times with the vast majority of situations. And so we're playing it more safe that
The
way.
least amount of supervision.
Exactly. And people are having their lives radically transformed, plain and simple. And that's the beautiful thing about it.
So I know that at one point you also kind of partnered the Empower Plus with an amino acid formula.
Yeah, so we still do that. And what the amino acid formula in Canada it's called free aminos. In the States it's called Amino Power Plus. Now what the initial launch was all about when we introduced it was to help alleviate withdrawal effects from these psychiatric medications that people were getting off of. Now, just to give you some clarity, we're helping thousands and thousands every year come off psychiatric medications. We're providing them the guidance that they need. And we've developed very particular protocols that we actually train doctors and psychiatrists around the
Yeah.
world on. And we've developed these protocols through working with literally at this point in time, about 100,000 people that have come to us having been on medications. And so we have the most that we're aware of, the biggest knowledge base in the world in relation to medication reductions. As far as we're aware, we've helped more people come off of psychiatric medications than any other organization in the world. Now, we might be wrong, but we're not aware aware of anybody else doing what we're doing to the degree that we're doing it, where we're
Yeah, I don't
literally
think.
thousands and thousands every year coming off psychiatric medications. So we discovered that there were certain things that we could do to really help with the withdrawal process to eliminate the side effects from those medications as people are coming off them. And the amino acid product was one of them.
Hmm.
Helps clear the medications out of the system, helps prevent the havoc from withdrawal. And then we came to realize, and we have this on the health food store shelves here, just as a general health supplement and a brain health supplement, actually, is what it's labeled for, because it works so synergistically with the EMPowerplus, even in the absence of medications. If somebody's looking to get well and to get well really quick, you add those two together. And once again, we're going back to those four pillars of nutrition: vitamins, minerals, amino acids, and then the omega fatty acids, all working as four legs on a chair, in essence, supporting us. And so when we add this, now we're adding what you'd consider to be the precursors to
That's right. Two
neurotransmitters.
neurotransmitters.
Yep. And precursors to all non-steroidal hormones. Steroidal hormones start with cholesterol, non-steroidal start with amino acid. So we're providing, in essence, the foundation for those particular molecules being produced.
Uh-huh.
This, and this is kind of going into the whole theory of why the True Hope works, the Empower Plus works on mental health conditions. This is supplying the coenzyme factors that will incite the enzyme reactions necessary to convert the amino acids into the various hormones and neurotransmitters that you need. So, really,
Mhm.
you have two formulas here working directly, supplying your body with all of the ingredients necessary to produce the, all the neurotransmitters that you need and the vast majority of the hormones that you need.
So the Empower Plus is entering the process post amino acid, but between amino acids and neurotransmitters.
Yeah,
So
so
it's
just
it's it's what it's the cofactors that allows the aminos to turn into the neurotransmitters in a consistent, effective, predictable way.
exactly. Yeah. So to illustrate that, if you were saying, I think I'm not producing enough serotonin, right? I'm depressed and, I'm not sleeping that well either, right? Which is quite often that we get both of those, that are working together, right? People come to us depressed and they come to us not sleeping. And we take a look at the pathway to produce serotonin and melatonin, because melatonin
Mhm.
actually is produced from serotonin. It
Right.
starts with tryptophan. Okay,
Yes.
tryptophan, it's highly present in pumpkin seeds and turkey. That's why, when you eat too much turkey, you go docile. You get tired. Why? Your body's actually producing a lot of melatonin
Yeah.
because you just gave yourself this influx of the tryptophan. Your body has more than enough, and it's producing all sorts of stuff with the tryptophan,
With
including
hopefully the other cofactors floating around, because
exactly.
tryptophan, of course, can go sideways in a couple of different directions.
Yes. So now if you have tryptophan, to get the tryptophan hydroxylase enzyme to convert tryptophan into 5-hydroxy
Uh-huh.
tryptophan, right?
Otherwise known as 5-HTP,
It-
everybody.
Thank you. Yep. Which many people are, if you ever suffered from depression, you went to a health food store, you likely were acquainted with 5-HTP. And so to get it to
Or
convert,
by the way, if you're a student of mine, just
oh,
saying.
there you go. And so you need to get the tryptophan hydroxylase enzyme to convert the tryptophan into 5-HTP. You need iron, methylfolate, vitamin C, D, and B3. Five vitamins and minerals to convert the tryptophan into 5-hydroxytryptophan. Then the 5-hydroxytryptophan more easily converts into 5-hydroxytryptamine, otherwise known as serotonin. And because it only needs one vitamin, and that is P5P or pyridoxine 5 phosphate, otherwise known as activated B6. That's it. So, activated vitamin B6 will then incite the enzyme reaction to convert 5-HTP into serotonin. You can see how there's synergy there. You wouldn't be able to do any of this if you didn't have the amino acid tryptophan in the first place. But now, if you have tryptophan, you wouldn't be able to do what you need to do with it unless you had the iron and then the vitamin C, D, and B3, and all of the nutrients necessary to take folic acid or any food-based form of folate and convert it
Right,
appropriately or methylate it appropriately into methyl tetrahydrofolate, which
right.
is the other vitamin that's necessary in there.
And of course, so many people, if they have any of the MTHFR SNPs, or more of them than less of them, are incapable of converting the synthetic folic acid into the methylated form.
Well, any form of folate, they're incapable of converting if they have those SNPs, right? And so that's where a lot of people are going into supplementing with methylfolate and methylcobalamin because of those SNPs. But we've actually seen those SNPs corrected in numerous situations through vitamin mineral supplementation.
Really?
Turns out that we're
Okay.
not doomed to genetic dysfunction in the body, but we can correct it. And that goes down the whole line of epigenetics. Now,
Yeah.
the science hasn't caught up with us on that yet, but we've seen it. We've had people testing positive and then getting on supplements and then testing negative for the MTHFR gene mutations. We've seen the same thing historically for many years with the correction of hemochromatosis, which is a result of two genetic mutations, and they can't consume iron, otherwise it'll build up in their blood because they're not assimilating it and not utilizing it. And so iron builds up in the blood if they consume iron-rich foods, and then they have to have a bloodletting to reduce the amount of iron in their blood, otherwise they go toxic. This has iron in it, so you shouldn't be taking it if you have hemochromatosis, except we have a protocol where you introduce it slow enough, and by the time you get to week 6, the vast majority of people that had hemochromatosis don't have hemochromatosis anymore, and they can eat all the iron-rich foods that they want and feel way better while taking a supplement that contains iron. Why? Because it corrected the genetic mutations that were causing their inability to be able to properly assimilate and utilize iron in the first place.
So, with that said, I'm going to take us sideways for a minute, if you don't mind. I
Love
mean,
it.
this has been just a fascinating conversation. Are you familiar with the brand new book, The Essence of Bipolar Disorder, that Dr. Walsh just published?
I'm not.
If I can boil it down to one sentence, he believes that people are genetically susceptible to bipolar disorder because of SNPs in the ion channel pathways, along with some other things. So I've been, having this conversation with you, thinking about what Walsh is describing is actually happening. Why does a product like EMPowerplus actually help? Because he talks about how your antioxidants like NAC, your other antioxidants can really help even out the swinging in bipolar disorder for a variety of reasons. But I was, it's this ion channel degradation that he thinks is really driving it over time. And so I'm thinking, if your Empower Plus has this type of epigenetic impact, that it might have this epigenetic impact on these degrading ion channels, i.e., the receptor sites, right, on your dendrites.
That very well could be that. I mean, that's deep, and there's still a lot of unanswered questions as to exactly why this works in all, like
Mhm.
obviously it's supplying the coenzyme factors to facilitate the production of neurotransmitters and hormones, but there's so much more that we still don't know. And so that's
Yeah.
very intriguing to me, what you're communicating there. What's the name of that book again?
It's called The Essence of Bipolar.
Okay.
Do I have it here? By Dr. William Walsh. Here we go. The Essence of Bipolar Disorder by Dr. William Walsh.
Perfect.
And it just got published. He's been
Wonderful.
researching it for the past 10 years.
All right. Well, I look forward to getting more insight as to what the particular mechanisms may in fact be
Yeah.
that the Empower Plus, the nutrients in there are impacting on and changing
Yeah,
so as to, yeah,
it got me thinking.
cool. Well, yeah, that's really interesting. You know, I wish the science would have or had been caught up with us on this. I mean, the science wasn't caught up
Mhm.
with us in 1996 when we discovered this.
No.
We were just a laughing stock. People were just anybody in the scientific community was laughing, saying vitamins and minerals don't do that. Well, tell that to the thousands of people that have already experienced it. And then the studies started to catch up. It took 5 years really for the studies to start to catch up. But we're seeing the same thing now with the whole genetic mutations aspect, especially with the MTHFR gene mutation that people have or mutations and what's going on there. And
Mhm.
unfortunately, the vast majority of the efforts that are being put towards correcting the issues are more of a band-aid approach, I would say,
Right.
than they are correcting the root. Nobody's saying, well, why am I not methylating? Well, genetic mutation. And as soon as we hear that, oh, it's in your genes, oh, we're doomed. There's nothing we can do about it other than band-aid solutions. I mean,
Not
that's a
true.
medical
Right.
approach, right? Where they say, oh, it's your genes, so there's nothing we can do about it, but we can give you this treatment for the rest of your life, and it will reduce some of the symptoms. We don't want to take that approach. I love actually what Henry David Thoreau said. Love the quote. He says, "For every thousand hacking at the leaves of evil, there is one who strikes the root." He's highlighting, this philosopher from the early 1800s who lives,
Mhm.
out in the middle of nowhere by himself by Walden Pond, and he's writing this philosophy, and he's just sitting there left to his thoughts all day.
Uh-huh.
But it's so true. It's a human issue where oftentimes we are addressing that which is seen rather than trying to identify that which is not so easily seen and correcting it, right? We're always looking at the symptoms and putting band-aids on them versus let's go one or two or three layers deeper and see why those symptoms emerged in the first place and then correct them,
Mhm.
going right to the root, right? And so by supplementing with methylated Bs, it's a band-aid solution at this point in time. And in fact, it can sometimes be problematic, especially we found it. We don't have methylated Bs in here, right?
Mhm.
Because the vast majority of people that take it, if it had methylated Bs in it, they will respond in a terrible fashion because over-methylation can be quite devastating,
Can
especially to
be.
one's mental health. And so we avoid the over-methylation because we're giving a supplement that's empowering your body's ability to methylate right there.
So that's really interesting. So again, one layer down, one layer closer to the root cause.
Exactly. Yeah. And there's a lot of misinformation surrounding all of the B vitamins, the methylated Bs, because there's the concept that, well, methyl folate is natural and folic acid is not natural. But when we're in the supplement industry, that's not the way it works. Methylfolate is actually produced from folic acid. So folic acid was synthetic in the first place, which it was
Right.
synthesized in a lab, so it's synthetic. And it's a crystalline form that's shelf stable. And I'm not an advocate of folic acid on its own. You'd never find me recommending it on its own. But in relation to the combination of the other nutrients where it's able to do its job, you would find me recommending it as part of a formula.
Ah,
But
huh.
but methylfolate comes from folic acid through two more chemical processes to get it to become methylfolate. The same thing goes with methylcobalamin. You take cyanocobalamin, you add it to an alkaline solution of sodium borohydrate,
Uh-huh.
and then you add methyl iodide to it, and the product that comes out by going through those two stages is methylcobalamin. So it comes from cyanocobalamin. So, anybody who's coming up with, fallacious things surrounding cyanocobalamin saying it comes from sewer sludge, which it, at least in Canada, doesn't. That'd be a quality control nightmare, by the way, to try to deal with that. It's easier just to take the bacteria that is present in soil that we should be consuming, that animals are consuming, by the way, when they're rummaging on the ground, but that we
Right.
should be consuming by leaving a little bit of dirt on our carrots, and then it goes into our gut, that bacteria, and will produce vitamin B12 on our own. But you have to have that introduction of that bacteria through the soil. And so it's easier to isolate that bacteria and in a clean setting rather than going to sewer sludge. Take it and you synthesize it in a laboratory setting, and then you don't have to deal with all the other garbage that comes with sewer sludge. So there's a lot of misinformation being spread to try to promote methylated B vitamins by
Uh-huh.
putting out this stuff. But
I'm glad you're bringing this up because I have wondered about folic acid in your product.
Mhm.
But I'm always concerned with people getting on just your methylated B vitamins because there are people who are either over-methylators in general, and they don't need to be pushed further in that direction, or they're more neutral and they still don't need to be pushed further in that direction.
Exactly. Or they're under methylating, but then they get on a methylated B and they take this, and now they're pushed into the over-methylation direction and not feeling great at all.
Let's just define what not feeling great means. My understanding is that if you're over methylating, you can very easily end up with too much dopamine, too much norepinephrine. You can end up agitated, you can end up aggressive and violent,
Yes.
and maybe even psychotic.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you've listed it exactly as it is. Now I'm going to go to the very furthest end of that. And we've seen it, unfortunately, with certain people where it's happened. And my wife is a perfect candidate for this. If she, now she takes this consistently every day. My whole family does. What makes parenting way easier. We're all happier. We can get along a lot better. We're not half as dysfunctional as we probably should be. But so there's a benefit to making sure that our kids get it, and there's a benefit to us taking it as parents. So she's constantly on this. If she goes and gets on a methylated B, and we've done this not quite a handful of times, because you start to see the patterns and you say, whoa, okay, we're not going there again. Within 3 days, she goes suicidal. She's not suicidal. She's stable. She's solid. You put her on a methylated B, she goes suicidal every time. And there was one time that she wasn't even aware that she was taking a methylated B, and I wasn't aware because we take additional Bs from time to time, right? Like it's not like if you get too much, you pee them out, right? So no balance issues, whatever, right?
Right.
But so being that we've reduced the amount that you take of this, you don't get near the amount of bees that you did when you're taking 48 capsules of it. So there's the odd time that we'll consume other bees. And so she's consuming another bee, and it was gifted to her by a rep from another company. And it's supposed to be a fantastic bee, and it has a handful of varieties of types of bees in there. And so it's not just, methylated bees, we find out later, but that was a portion of it. And she took that for 2 weeks before she realized what was going on. And at that point in time, she was ready to check out. And we were all wondering why. What's going on? Like what's
Mhm.
up? Like why? Now we were going through some interesting life circumstances at that point in time that one could have said it was that, but I'm like, we've been through way worse than this, like far worse than this, right? Like it's
Yeah.
not
Yeah.
overabundant stress. She had this epiphany, if you will, where she just realized, wait a minute, is that supplement? She stopped taking it. One day later, she says the light came back into her. So
Oh
that's
my
interesting. So
goodness.
it put her into such a dark place. So she's on the extreme end. I'm not saying that that's where
Yeah.
everyone goes, but we know that people do go there. And we've seen where there's been formulations kind of like this that were
Uh-huh.
produced, and I don't want to say any names to not lack of better terms incriminate them, but where they put methylated bees in a highly effective vitamin mineral supplement, and we're aware of suicides that have taken place because of it. So
Oh.
it's not a one-off, but there are some people that are that incredibly sensitive, and my wife is one of them. That's the extreme end of where it'll take you. But you listed off all the other stuff: agitation, even psychosis, irritability. You get this heightened level of nutrients or sorry, neurotransmitters that you shouldn't be getting: dopamine, serotonin, and it's
Oh,
interesting that you bring that
and
up.
or if dopamine goes too high, serotonin will go too low, and that may be that suicidal effect in your wife, that her serotonin was crashing because her dopamine was too high.
It's very possible. The mechanism and how it worked, I don't know. All I know is that the pattern's there, and it happens not all or not every time. Sorry, not almost every time. It happens literally every single time that she touches a
Your
B
poor
vitamin.
wife. Oh my goodness, that must have been really challenging until you guys figured it out.
Oh, yeah, it was incredibly challenging. Like we didn't know what to do. Like we had no idea what to do. And then all of a sudden we realized, wait a minute, well, not we, she realized it. And then she communicated to me after about, hey,
Yeah,
it's since I've been taking that B vitamin and I thought about it and I stopped taking it and all of a sudden, boom, light came on. And
yeah.
I'm like, whoa, like I had no idea what was going on. I thought, we need to change her life circumstances. Let's take her out of this environment. Let's figure this out, whatever, right? And which is interesting because that's so phenomenally peculiar in relation to
Right.
our circumstances because as parents, as a married couple, as a family, we are pretty solid. And so for
Hmm.
that type of situation to arise was very out of character.
Which makes it easier to ask yourself, okay, what's changed? Oh, what's changed? I've added this new supplement.
Yep. And it's unfortunate I wasn't aware of it. Yeah, so just to communicate the whole methylation aspect and to highlight why we don't put methylated bees in our product. Because once again, Henry David Thoreau, for every thousand hacking at the leaves of evil, there's one who strikes the root. We're going back
Uh-huh.
to the root. We're wanting to correct the methylation issues rather than apply a band-aid solution to the methylation issues. A band-aid solution that could be disastrous for many people.
Well, I can think of a million more questions to ask you, but we are coming up on an hour, so we should probably pull this to an end. Although this has been a fascinating conversation.
Well, thank you. No, I appreciate it, Christina. I know that we went down some areas I don't think that we were planning on going. At least, well, I didn't know where we were planning on going because I came into this a little bit blind. That's okay. I like it because it makes for a more organic conversation rather than, thinking about what you're going to be
Yes, well, I
asking.
didn't know what direction we were going to end up going in either, but I just asked the questions as they occurred to me, and I know they would occur to some of our listeners as well. So
Hmm.
thank you for being so generous in your detailed answers. I really appreciate it. If people want to get hold of you personally, or if people want to, I know you've explained how to get a hold of the True Hope and the Empower Plus product, but if you could just share that information again.
Yeah, absolutely. So truehopecanada.com, if you're in Canada, that's the website you want to use, truehopecanada.com. You can get in touch with us there. And you can even email and just say, hey, maybe you want to reach out to myself, David Stephan, and my assistant will find the way to make that happen. You can follow us on social media platforms, Instagram, X, Facebook, that type of thing. I'm personally on Facebook. I have a presence there. I don't do too much with my account, but it's there nonetheless. And if you're in the States or any other country, truehope.com is where you can go to get access to our products and to some of the materials and the research studies. Health Canada made us remove the 35 medical journal publications off of our website in Canada, but it's still available at truehope.com because they didn't
Okay,
approve of what it had been studied for and the profound effects that it had generated. And so,
I'm sure they didn't. Now,
and
Bonnie Kaplan is one of the big researchers, right?
yeah, she's one of the main researchers who was willing to put her neck out on the line to become part of an incredible discovery.
Who are some of the other researchers?
Dr. Julia Ruckledge out of the University of
Right.
Canterbury. Yep.
She's in Australia.
Yep. Dr. Charles Popper was one of the main ones back in the day out of Harvard, McLean's
That's
Hospital,
right.
Harvard University, and he's a big name in psychiatry. Dr. Scott Shannon was also one, but a little more underlined, but Scott Shannon.
I know him from Boulder, Colorado.
Yep.
I was part of an integrative psychiatrist forum where I met him and a couple of other psychiatrists like 20 years ago who were using Empower Plus.
Yes, yes, indeed.
And so the term micronutrients,
Yeah.
this is you guys, isn't it?
Yeah, the micronutrients for mental health. Yeah, so if you were in Denver, Colorado back, I think that was '05, no, probably '06, something like that. There was a convention that happened where there was a lot of people that got together.
It
Dr. Charles
was.
Popper was one of them, and they all presented, all these psychiatrists were presenting on their findings in relation to their use of Empower Plus and the use of other, some of them were using herbs, some were employing the use of omega fatty acids in conjunction with, and they were there
Mhm.
presenting their findings so as to really highlight the profound effect that these supplements could have
Right.
and really educate the other researchers and psychiatrists on how to better utilize these tools to ensure that they were completely turning their clients around rather than just medicating them for the rest of their life with a very low quality of life. So really quite a phenomenal thing.
Yeah, yeah. And I've heard amazing things about that conference. I didn't get to go to it, but we need next time. I wasn't able to get any of your people at my conference that I put on in Columbus in May, but the next conference I do put on, which will hopefully be either in 26 or 27, I'd love to have some of your people come speak.
That would be fantastic. It'd be a pleasure. I'm sure we can make that happen. And yeah, it's just yeah, it'd be a beautiful thing to continue to move this work forward as best as possible. Because at the end of the day, what's in the balances is whether people have a good quality of life or whether they live a dismal life being medicated for something that could be so easily corrected just by simply putting the proper nutrition back into their body and allowing their body to do what it does best, and that's thrive under the proper
And that's
circumstances.
to heal itself and to
Yeah.
thrive. And this brings me back to my driving passion, David, which is that too many people have died, and it's time to give the brain the nutrients it requires to flourish so that we stop dying.
Exactly. Exactly. Make sure that we have the nutrients necessary. The body does a far better job with all the complexities that are going on. You just give it what it needs and it does all the complexities for you rather than trying to stimulate and figure that out with different medications. There's one other thing too, in relation to the Discovery story, that film that came out, Epiphany, that's available for people to watch free of charge. It's a phenomenal film out there, and it's getting raving reviews. And you can either find that on truehopecanada.com, right on the homepage. I don't know if it's on truehope.com yet, or if someone was to go to matadorfilms.ca. But just for the sake of simplicity, just remember truehopecanada.com. And all you have
Got
to do
it.
is scroll down maybe two-thirds of the
And
page, and you'll
and
see it.
and we'll put this on the show notes anyway. But thank you for reminding us all of that film. I want to watch it. So thank you for being with us, and thank you all for watching this episode. If you enjoyed it, please push the like button and the subscribe button and share it with all of your friends and colleagues and clients. Thank you for being with us. Thank you for tuning in to Power Up Recovery with Nutrition. I'm Christina Veselak, your host, and I hope today's episode has inspired and equipped you with new insights and tools to support your recovery journey or practice. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe, leave a review, and share it with others who could benefit from the knowledge shared here. Stay connected with us for more episodes filled with practical advice, expert wisdom, and inspiring recovery stories. Remember, nutrition is a powerful tool in mental health and relapse prevention. Power up your recovery today. I'm Christina Veselak, and I'll see you next time.